August 31, 1944. Eastern France. Patton's Third Army was unstoppable. They had just liberated Paris, broken through every German defense, raced 400 miles in 30 days. Now they stood on the German border, 100 miles from ending the war. Patton's tanks could see the Rhine River, beyond it, the heart of Germany. Undefended, open, he needed fuel. Just 400,000 gallons, 2 days of supply. Then he'd be inside Germany before the Germans could regroup. The request went to Supreme Commander Eisenhower. The answer came back, no. Eisenhower was diverting Patton's fuel north to British Field Marshal Montgomery for an operation called Market Garden, a gamble to end the war quickly. Patton's tanks stopped, out of gas, on the side of the road, while the fuel trucks rolled past them, heading north to the British. What Patton said when he found out would create a rift that never healed, and what happened next would prove him right in the most tragic way possible. This is the story of the fuel that changed the war. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe. We tell the World War II stories about the decisions that changed history and the men who made them. To understand why Eisenhower's decision was so devastating, you need to understand what Patton had just accomplished. The breakout from Normandy had been a bloodbath. For 6 weeks after D-Day, Allied forces were stuck fighting hedgerow to hedgerow, gaining yards per day, losing thousands of men. Then in late July, American forces punched through at St. Lo, and Patton's Third Army was unleashed. What happened next shocked everyone, including Patton's own staff. The Third Army didn't advance, it exploded across France like a tidal wave. 400 miles in 30 days, they liberated Paris, crossed the Seine River, smashed through the Siegfried Line fortifications, captured entire German divisions before they could escape. Patton's philosophy was simple: keep moving, never let the enemy regroup. Speed saves lives. And it was working. The German army in France was collapsing, retreating in chaos, abandoning equipment, surrendering by the thousands. By August 31st, Patton was standing on the Moselle River, looking east at the German border. Intelligence reports confirmed what Patton could see with his own eyes. The road to Germany was wide open. No major German forces between his position and the Rhine. If he could reach the Rhine, cross it, and drive into the industrial Ruhr region, the war might be over by Christmas. Germany's war production would collapse. Their ability to resist would crumble. But there was one problem, a critical problem that would change everything: fuel. The Third Army consumed fuel at an astonishing rate. Tanks, trucks, jeeps, half-tracks, everything ran on gasoline, and Patton's rapid advance had stretched supply lines to the breaking point. The fuel depots were still back in Normandy, over 400 miles behind the front lines. Every gallon had to be trucked forward through damaged French roads. The Red Ball Express, a dedicated trucking route, was running non-stop, 6,000 trucks a day. But it wasn't enough. Patton was burning fuel faster than it could be delivered. On August 31st, his tanks started running dry. Patton called his supply officer. "How much do we have?" "Enough for maybe 2 more days of limited operations, sir." "How much do I need to reach the Rhine?" 400,000 gallons, maybe more." Patton grabbed the phone, called Bradley, then called Eisenhower's headquarters. The message was desperate and clear. "Give me fuel and I'll end this war, right now. 2 days, that's all I need." The response took hours to arrive. When it came, Patton couldn't believe what he was reading. Eisenhower was halting the advance. All fuel shipments to the Third Army were being redirected north to support British Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery. Montgomery had proposed an operation, code-named Market Garden, a massive airborne assault to capture bridges across the Rhine in Holland. If successful, Allied forces could bypass the German border defenses and drive straight into Germany from the north. Eisenhower had approved it, and to make it work, Montgomery needed fuel. Lots of it. Patton's fuel. When Patton got the news, his staff heard him screaming from 3 rooms away. He drove immediately to Bradley's headquarters, burst into the office without announcement. "Brad, tell me this is a mistake." Bradley looked exhausted. "It's not a mistake, George. You're stopping me. Now, when I'm 100 miles from ending this war?" Ikes made his decision.
His decision is insane. Montgomery?
That cautious, methodical, slow-moving, Patton was shouting. "I just raced 400 miles. Montgomery takes 4 weeks to plan a river crossing." Bradley held up his hand. "George, I argued your case. You know I did. But Ike believes Market Garden can work. Market Garden is a fantasy. You're dropping paratroopers behind enemy lines to capture bridges. In broad daylight. Against an enemy that's had weeks to prepare. It's suicide. The decision is made. Patton paced the room like a caged animal. Give me the fuel. Just give me what I need. I don't need Market Garden. I don't need bridges in Holland. I'll cross the Rhine right here, right now. Before the Germans even know I'm coming. There isn't enough fuel for both operations, George. Then choose me. I'm already at the door. Montgomery's still in Belgium. Bradley's face showed the strain. Ike chose Montgomery. Patton stopped pacing. His voice dropped, became cold. Why? Bradley didn't answer immediately. Why, Brad? Because Montgomery threatened to resign if he didn't get priority, and Ike can't afford a political crisis with the British right now. The truth hung in the air. This wasn't about military strategy. It was about politics, about keeping the alliance intact, about making sure the British felt valued. Patton's advance was being stopped, not because it wouldn't work, but because Montgomery's ego demanded attention. Patton sat down heavily. How long? How long? What? How long am I stopped? Bradley consulted a paper. Market Garden launches September 17th. 2.5 weeks. You'll resume offensive operations after that. 2.5 weeks. Patton's voice was hollow. Brad, in 2.5 weeks, the Germans will have every defense rebuilt, every bridge wired to blow, every position reinforced. I won't be fighting a retreat anymore. I'll be fighting a fortress. I know. And you're doing it anyway. Bradley met his eyes. We have our orders. Patton stood, walked to the door, turned back. When Market Garden fails, and it will fail, remember this conversation. Remember that we could have ended this war in September. Remember that every American soldier who dies this winter died because Ike chose politics over victory. He left. The next morning, Patton's tank sat motionless on the Moselle River, out of fuel, watching the road, and down that road came the fuel trucks, loaded with thousands of gallons of gasoline. Patton's men watched them drive past, heading north, to Montgomery. The bitterness was overwhelming. Tankers standing next to empty vehicles, watching fuel drive away to a different army. One tank commander later described it. We could have been in Berlin. Instead, we were parked on the side of the road, watching the British get our gasoline. That's when we knew the war wasn't about winning anymore. It was about who got credit. Patton channeled his rage into preparation. If Eisenhower wanted him to wait, fine. He'd use the time to prepare for what came next. He visited every division, talked to commanders, planned river crossings, mapped German positions, built up ammunition stockpiles, and he watched the calendar, waiting for Market Garden to launch, waiting for it to fail, because he knew it would. September 17, 1944, Operation Market Garden began. 35,000 Allied paratroopers dropped into Holland. Their mission, capture bridges across the Rhine, hold them until ground forces could link up and push into Germany. It was the largest airborne operation in history. It was also a disaster. The Germans were waiting. The Dutch terrain was terrible for armor. The bridges were heavily defended. Communication broke down. Air support couldn't help because of weather. The British 1st Airborne Division landed at Arnhem, fought for 9 days, was destroyed. Out of 10,000 men, only 2,000 escaped. The operation achieved none of its objectives. The Rhine crossings failed. The advance stalled. Montgomery's gamble had failed, catastrophically. Thousands of Allied soldiers died, for nothing. When the news reached Patton, he didn't gloat. He was furious. He called Bradley. I told you. I told Ike. And now those men are dead. For what? So Montgomery could prove he was bold. So Ike could show the British he cared about their ideas. Bradley's voice was tired. George, we all know. Do you? Do you really understand what just happened? Those paratroopers at Arnhem died because you gave Montgomery my fuel. I could have been across the Rhine by now. This war could have been over. Maybe. Or maybe you would have stalled too. War isn't certain, George. No, but I know this. I would have tried. And I would have tried in August when the Germans were broken, not September when they'd regrouped. That's the difference. The conversation ended, but the damage was permanent. Patton never forgave Eisenhower. In his diary, he wrote, Ike has sold his soul to keep Montgomery happy. We've lost months, and we'll pay for it in blood this winter. He was right. The Germans used the breathing space to rebuild. They reinforced the Siegfried Line, brought up reserves, prepared defensive positions. When Patton finally resumed his advance in mid-September, the easy war was over. The Germans fought for every mile. The battles were brutal, casualties mounted, and then came December, the Battle of the Bulge. Germany's last desperate offensive caught the Allies completely off guard. If Patton had been allowed to drive into Germany in August, the Germans wouldn't have had the resources to launch that attack. The divisions they used in the Bulge were the ones they'd pulled back and reorganized while Patton sat waiting for fuel. The war didn't end in 1944. It dragged on into 1945, more battles, more death, more destruction, all because of 400,000 gallons of gasoline. After the war, historians debated Eisenhower's decision. Some defended him. The alliance with Britain mattered. Keeping Montgomery engaged was important politically. Others argued Patton was right. The military opportunity was real. The chance to end the war in 1944 existed, and it was sacrificed for politics. What's certain is this: Eisenhower made a choice. He chose Montgomery over Patton. He chose alliance politics over military opportunity. And the war continued. Patton never forgot, never forgave. The relationship between him and Eisenhower, once close, became cold and professional. Years later, Eisenhower was asked about his decision. He defended it, said Market Garden was worth trying, said the alliance mattered more than any single general's ambitions. But some who knew him said that privately. In his later years, he wondered, what if he'd given Patton the fuel? What if the Third Army had crossed the Rhine in September 1944? We'll never know. History doesn't offer do-overs. What we do know is that 400,000 gallons of fuel changed the trajectory of the war, that Patton's tanks sat empty while the fuel drove north, that Market Garden failed, and that thousands died in battles that might never have been fought. If you'd been Eisenhower, what would you have done? Gambled on Patton's speed? Or chosen Montgomery's plan to keep the alliance strong? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more stories about the decisions that changed World War II, make sure to subscribe.